Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes ball. People might yet win it here for Wolves. Flash in the shot. What a goal!
Good evening, Wolves fans, and welcome to the latest episode of Wolves Fancast. Greeted by a trio of heroes ready to delve into the dirt of yesterday's abysmal 6-0 thrashing by Brighton. I've got Stu and I've got Adam with me. Gents, first initial thoughts in the aftermath. Not quite the immediate aftermath, but...
The true heroes are the ones that actually went yesterday.
It's true.
Christ almighty. I mean,
well, we are giving up our bank holiday Sunday right now, so yeah,
it does make us
we
slightly
could be
heroic.
doing much more interesting things, couldn't we? But I mean, I was going to start by asking Stu, because he is our resident away day traveller, and I'll ask you from a hypothetical stance now because I know you didn't go yesterday, but would you have made it to 90 minutes, and would you have asked for your money back?
I mean, let's get the second part out of that first. No, never. That whole thing is baffling nonsense to me. I mean, from that logic, you're asking, okay, when we actually play well and we score more than 3-4 goals, do we have to pay more for more entertainment that we've seen?
I've heard that positive by a few different.
That's like surge pricing on Ticketmaster, isn't it? Surge pricing. It's more demand, more goals, pay more.
Entitlement culture yet again. Nah, you know what you're getting, don't you? Especially with Wolves. I mean, you don't expect that record defeat in Premier League era, but at the same time,
strong start to the comment section, by the way.
Yeah, to be expected. But it's one of them. Mate. It's the fact that Spurs did it. I think fair enough. If the players offer it because they're genuinely embarrassed, and after that shit show last week from them, then yeah, fine. I don't expect anyone to come out and say, yeah, you can have your money back for the 3,000 who went to Brighton. It was just one of them. Would I take the money? Obviously, but I'm not gonna go and ask for it at all. But the first point would. I rang a few people this morning about this because it was one of them weird ones where I actually wasn't there for a change. And my mum left at 5-0, and by the time they got back to the car, it was 6. And then she was back home at 8 o'clock, which is pretty good going, really. But some of the guys who went on the coach who were stranded there couldn't go anywhere else. But luckily, because Brighton's such a nice, hospitable place, the bar was open from half time and it didn't shut. So they just stayed downstairs for the whole second half.
Well, I found this last season because I think they know people are going to be queuing for the train anyway. So they keep the bar open after the game. So it makes a lot of sense, to be fair.
But this time they kept it open for the whole second half. Which is nice of them, really. But yeah, I think I've only probably left 4 or 5 games early, like early at all, let alone like within 10, 15 minutes. Obviously, the 5-1 to Albion was one of them, and I left it 4-0 for that. But I think probably 6 would have been enough. I think 5 coming straight as soon as it did, kind of, I don't think that would have pushed me over the edge unless I'd just stayed down in the bar, because as soon as it went to 3, you knew it was game over.
Yeah.
But there was still a lot of football to be played. So, and like we had against the Leeds game when we were 3-0 down.
Yeah,
you could have had some madness going on that you'd miss. So for me, I wouldn't have gone like I didn't leave the Leeds game. So
there is something about it though that's like you can't take your eyes off it. You know, like you see a really bad accident on the motorway and everyone's just staring.
Well, I was almost actively willing Brighton to score more to humiliate us even more.
Yeah,
I thought let's beat the record, and then I completely forgot about Man United. And
when it got to the point where like we were obviously dead and buried, I was willing Estepinian to score to increase my FPL points for the week. So I thought,
he tried his best.
Well, yeah, I thought the Wolves are getting jack shit out of this game, so I might as well get some FPL points out of it just to make myself feel a bit slightly better. But I've kept my record. I wouldn't have left. I wouldn't have. I've never left the game early. Luckily, there was one time I come close when. Remember when we played? I think it was under the jacket season. We played Brentford away and lost 4-0. I think it was.
Oh god, yeah.
I think it was the time we had like Danny Graham up front.
Danny Graham, yeah.
That's silliness. I think we come close then. I think some of my mates just then said, initially they would prodding me to say, can we go? And then it turned into, I think there was about 10 minutes left and I turned to them and said, do you want to go? And they said, no, I want to stop now because I want to boo them off.
I suppose there is a point to that. You've purchased your right to do that, haven't you? I suppose by having a ticket and venting at the end of the game. Another hypothetical question: if the players did offer to pay, who would you personally want the bank transfer from to come out of? Like...
I think the automatic choice was Semedo yesterday, by the sounds of it.
A lot of people seem to think that he was
a fault for everything.
Public enemy number one, like
including Don Hutchinson, whose missus must have been having relations with him. The amount of stick he gave him on.
Was this? Did you listen to the comments of Jackie Oatley?
No, there was a different one.
There was another one. Okay.
Yeah,
that was the Don Hutchinson one as well.
Yeah, it was Joe Spate and Don Hutchinson on whatever exceptional platform that we watched that on yesterday. But yeah, it was outrageous. Like when Lamina gave the ball when Lamina was for some reason playing in defence, and he started screaming Semedo straight away. And then he did commit. He did, like probably said in the group chat, he did fix it straight away. To be fair, but it was like his first instinct. Oh, black player at the back, Semedo. And he's like,
well, let's not make any strong accusations.
Oh well, it was the only reason why they don't look the same other than that. So it's
true.
I think it's because that he just probably been saying Semedo a lot from the 5 minutes prior because of what he was doing. So he was just like on the tip of his tongue all the time. Semedo.
No, it was the same on the Premier League commentary. I think it's Matt Upson was the co-coms on that, and for whatever reason, just. Probably a centre half that doesn't want his full back running forward and just gets exposed. Typical.
God, did we have all the dregs of the commentator world in our game yesterday? Jackie Oatley, Don Hutchinson, Matt Upson, and some
of the 2 games.
I know. That's the thing, and we still got the pick them, did we? Talking of picks, we'll move on to the starting lineup as we usually do. I don't know about you. I had a feeling. Look, Brighton are a team you have to respect. They've obviously had a really good season and have a very particular way of playing through the middle of the pitch, especially. I expected Lopetegui to go with an extra midfield man. Would you? I mean, on the face of it, pre-match, did you have an issue with the team at all, Price?
Kind of, yeah. To be honest, I mean, we'll take like the lineup graphics as with a pinch of salt, don't we, when it comes out, because they're normally always wrong. But it did have us as a 4-4-2 with Neto and Costa up front, and that was one thing. But just seeing the players that he picked, I couldn't wrap my head around it, to be honest. And I don't think Neto was worthy of a start. It just seemed like. Right, and this was my thing. It seemed like he was like experimenting a little bit. If I saw all the celebrations after the Palace game, and they all, Lopetegui included, and all the players, it just seemed like that they were celebrating like they knew they were staying up, like the job was done. And now he's thinking, right, I can experiment with my players because I don't know why. Otherwise, you'd see players like Cunha on the bench. So there's no reason. For him to be on the bench at all. To be in my mind, he should be playing. The actual formation that was picked was just a bit baffling. No, the comment says Cunha missing caused this. No, I think that's a bit of a leap, a jump of the stretch. To be honest, with what I'm saying.
One factor.
Yeah, it's just one. I'm just saying that the team is not what I would have picked out. To be honest, and And yeah, the formation was just a bit baffling. It seems to be with me that there's two ways Lopetegui approaches games. There's a home version and an away version. I looked up his record earlier. I did take a little look at his home and away record, and he's had 18 games in charge of us now, nine home, 9 away. We've only won 2 of his away games all season, and you could argue there's a bit of fortune about them. That was Everton and Southampton. And obviously his home games, he sets us up correct because we've won 6 of his 9 home games. And there's, some relatively big names in there like Chelsea, Spurs, Liverpool, etc. Just seems that when it comes to away games, we just set up in a baffling manner. It just seems as though we just get it wrong all the time. And my thoughts were just, I just wasn't confident at all. I saw Brighton made changes, but
that's what I mean. Yeah, I prefer to call it shit in the bed, to be honest, Adam, when it comes to his away team selection. But I was going to come on to that, Stu. The Brighton team was actually much changed compared to what you'd expect to see. You had players like Billy Gilmore kind of coming in from the cold, and Caicedo, McAllister, and Mitoma all on the bench. I guess in many ways there's a sense of optimism if you see those names missing from the starting lineup. But I mean, it obviously transpired that it didn't really make a fat lot of difference.
I'd completely forgot that Billy Gilmore was there. When I saw his little face, kind of look, he still looks about 12 years old.
Yeah, he does.
But yeah, I mean, like we said at the time when I was the opposite of Pricey, I was kind of thinking you look at that team and it screams 4-5-1. Which against Brighton wasn't a bad idea, and then their lineup came out, and you think even better, but it wasn't even 4-5-1. And I think that was the start of the chaos.
What would you call it though? What?
Well, I tried to think about it because, like I mentioned about the Lamina situation where he was playing in defence sometime, and it was almost like a kind of 2-1-5-1 mess, which with. Matthias on the left wing for, again, whatever mad reason, which didn't work before, other than one game against Liverpool because he was against Trent, which is says it, all you need to know about that. Neto, who's barely played, who does he deserve a start? That's another question altogether. But the problem that we've had all season long, when especially with Semedo, where if he hasn't got someone in front of him and he's asked to play as a wing back, he fucks it up. And it's not his fault because he already has to cover like the first half of the season when he was covering about 3 roles because Collins couldn't be relied upon and he had no one in front of him and he was exposed over and over again. And then yesterday he was stuck on the halfway line for the vast majority of the first half. You think, what the hell is going on? But it wasn't just him; it was the same with Bueno as well. So it wasn't just Semedo's got free rein today. It was clearly a system thing, which. This is why I said I can't wait for GTA this week because none of it made any sense to me. And this was within the first 5 minutes. And then a minute later, they score.
Yeah, I'm pushing back my desire to watch the game back as long as I can. I mean, I will do it and I'll probably make it to half time because I don't think the second half made a fat lot of difference anyway. But yeah, I mean, we've seen it recently with Spurs obviously going down heavily early in a game. And
twice.
Well, yeah, twice today as well. 4-0, it was at halftime for a variety of reasons, I guess. Where do you point the finger, if at all, there, Price?
Where do you start? Genuinely, where do you start? I mean, there's no. We just seemed yesterday incapable. I use the term like on the beach, but and we practically were 2 miles from the beach, weren't we, yesterday? But the players just seemed to think, like I said before, the hard work was done, and that performance, not just the first half, but the whole lot just stank of. We just don't need to turn up, and there's quite a few players in that team, and I'm looking at likes of Lamina, Nunes, and even João Gomes. Actually, they barely could make a 5-yard pass. They just couldn't. They couldn't just keep hold of the ball at all. Couldn't find our own men. They looked just completely disinterested. It was just baffling, to be honest. I think even Mikey Burrows, when I watched the extended highlights back, he even just used the word disgusting at one point. and it was just that. To be
There's a
honest,
lot when the official club commentator is coming out with words like that. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, you can be subjective as far as you can, but when you're getting trumped 6-0,
yeah,
you know, and I mean, we managed about 2 shots on target all game. It was just, I don't know. I struggle sometimes. I struggle with words with this one, to be honest, because I don't think any of us saw that coming at all.
no,
We thought,
no.
I mean, not many of us probably thought that we would win because it's Brighton and we generally get shit all from going there. I know last season apart. I know I forgot that one in the group chat. I completely that one completely slipped my mind. We won there last year, but yeah, that I don't know. It just like a team that were, I wouldn't say ill prepared, because surely the manager's more professional than that. But they've just gone out and they've just not tried the leg, as the term goes. They just looked completely bereft of any ability. Like they're just like 11 competition winners all on the pitch at the same time.
I think.
Yeah.
I was going to say, not saying ill prepared. I think that's exactly what it looked like. I think it looked like a team who've played a certain way for 3-4 months, then suddenly being put into this madness and not having a clue what they're supposed to be doing, where each other's supposed to be, who's supposed to be pressing, who's supposed to be running where. It just looked completely disorganised. It looked like that famous tale the bully talks about, the Newcastle game where they were all on the piss on the night before and he still scored a hat-trick in the second. And that's what it looked like. It looked like they'd been out like a Sunday League team where you all turn up, you haven't trained with each other. You say, oh, well, I know you're vaguely over there, I'll kick it and rush. And that's kind of what it looked like, because you think, well, we've had a certain way of playing and then it's not being a Neves thing again. But them 2 games when he wasn't there, when you had actual pressing and movement and energy in the middle of the park, they kind of bled around it from kind of thing, which then evaporated against Palace when he came back, which is not a shock. That was the same again yesterday, where you look at they even showed it on Match of the Day with the clip of, I think it was Gilmore, pressing when Matthias lost the ball in the centre circle. And there was none of that from us at all. And that was literally 2 weeks ago. We had 2 weeks of performances where we've played really, really well and really, really good football to then put the captain back in. And it was shit against Palace. It was. I don't care about the scoreline. It was a result. It got us over the line. Fair enough. It was a shit performance. And then that leads into yesterday. And it's like, well, we've seen how we can play. And, okay, that's a way of playing. Neves wants to put himself about a bit. Fine. That didn't happen against Palace. And then it happened with no one yesterday. And again, the away game curse comes in, whatever the hell's going on with that. And it was just like a melting pot of shitness altogether in one cauldron.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's always a cause and effect, right? And Brighton are the kind of team that will make you reconsider your plans probably over and over again. I mean, it was Tuesday we played Palace, 3 days later we've got another game. Maybe there's something in that in terms of actually conjuring a plan up of what to do with this game. But to me, it just felt like throwing an extra midfielder into the mix would kind of do. And it obviously didn't. Despite the fact that we know that 4-4-2 has kind of been the way forward recently, and we've played our best football. I still say Brentford, Chelsea, and the first half against Leicester is the best we've had it under Lopetegui for me as a consistent run of form. At which point, kind of Ruben Neves gets reintroduced after his suspension. Do we think there's a shoehorning of Neves into the team at this point?
100%.
I was just going to say something similar then. We were talking about that because we know we saw how well Gomez and Lamina worked together in those 2 games against Chelsea and Brentford, and then we did wonder, how the Neves thing would go. We all knew deep down that he would obviously come back in. We all long term he wasn't going to keep at the team for long. But when you set up with you got a 3 of Neves, Lamina, and also Joao Gomez, think, well, hang on. Well, if we're going to have all those three in the same team, we're clearly going to be compromising or sacrificing something somewhere else in the team, aren't we? Right? I mean,
yeah, and you might as well be playing with 10 men because Big Diego is effectively worthless without Cunha or Sarabia or someone else next to him running around.
The thing is, Cunha is also worthless as a lone striker as well.
Yeah,
We actually haven't got a 9 that can play that role in the role.
Yeah, and which makes it even more stupid that we've got to this situation now in April when we've known that Cunha can't play as a lone striker all for the last 3-4 months. He's proved that doesn't work. He's played his best football with Diego Costa in front of him, and vice versa, and yet for whatever reason he's dropped, and then Costa, who'd played the vast majority of the game on Tuesday, starts again. It makes no sense at all because you're basically cutting off any kind of threat going forward from the head down because you've got no kind of presence up front other than him being his own annoying little self. Which that VAR check for whatever he's supposed to have done was a joke, by the way. Absolute farce.
So my alternative means of watching the game disappeared on me at literally the point when Neto was beating Estupinian. How far did he get into the box before he actually pulled the game back?
He was in the penalty area.
So he had a shot at goal on. Right?
No, he was just before he was about to pull because he got into the box and then he blew the whistle as his momentum was taking him towards the penalty spot.
So he had a chance to get a shot at goal. Right,
yeah, for a foul that wasn't a foul.
He travelled a long way, didn't he? He travelled a long way with the ball.
That isn't. I mean, look, refereeing stuff. There's no point in talking about it today. But that's an abomination, isn't it? Like if he scores a goal there, it's a different picture. Or whichever way you look at it. I mean, but
it's no surprise anymore. So there's no point talking about it. Is there?
I don't even know what. Like Costa and Webster were just like grinding on each other down on the floor almost. I don't even know what else you can call it.
I think he knew that as well. You see, with Costa, because like obviously he knows now that you can't get away with anything anymore, can you? So
you shouldn't be able to, should you? Yeah.
Well, theoretically, yeah, no. Especially like he got caught out Brentford away, so you can just see when he's on top of Webster, you can see he's rigid. He's not doing anything because he thinks if I do anything right now, I'm going to be up slack alley. So he just doesn't move at all. So there's nothing in it. But
you also know 5 years ago he wouldn't even have had that second thought, though, would you? He'd have probably just gone.
Be biting somewhere, wouldn't he?
Yeah. I mean, we'll try and keep this as light-hearted as possible, guys. But is there a particular goal that made you chuckle any more than the others? I'll discount Gross's second goal, I think, with the touch and the volley, because that was just a class finish, to be fair. But any of the others spring to mind and immediately jump out as what the fuck happened there?
Yeah,
you could have picked up 4 of the 6, really. The Saar one was the one that I actually laughed at, though.
The 6th, that was.
Yeah, I just got back from the fridge, which is 10 second pace.
Short trip.
Yeah, and I just sat down and to refuel the physics machine, and I just went to pull one off and then get a beer. And then that happened, and I just burst out laughing. I thought, it's what do you even do at this point?
He's even showboated with the finish, didn't he? Like it wasn't even like a clinical finish. He just went, I might just dink this because
for me, like with that one, that was like the gold standard of apathetic or just pathetic. Really, that was like the ball's on our own halfway line. Brenner's passed it back. It's come to Saar. Saar's got like it's got so much time who he can like decide to pass to, and it's got wide options. He just goes, nah, I'll just pass it to Nunez, who's got 2 men rapidly closing him down, and then he just thinks, what the fuck have you given me the ball for? And then next thing you know, was it Undav?
You know what? I wouldn't put it past Nunez to have asked for it though, there, because you know what he's like.
There's a narrative that's developing on Twitter about him that was the first time I'd actually noticed it since I saw it in the week, that he drops the left shoulder over and over again, and he's constantly getting caught out with it. And until it was kind of pointed out, I never considered it, but it seems like his skill move that everyone knows. So it's going to defeat the object a bit. But yeah,
he was almost in Portugal. He's probably so much quicker and more nimble than anybody in midfield there. He could get away with it as much as he liked, but you're not going to get away with it in this league as often as you'd want him to. And it's continued. As much as people will tell you that he's been moved from pillar to post for whatever reason, there's a reason why, you're talking Large, Davis and Lopetegui have all decided they don't really want to play him in central midfield.
Yeah, it's almost like a kind of Thierry Henry situation, isn't it, where you play him somewhere else first before he can be trusted to play in the middle. Obviously midfield, but yeah. And I think that kind of what you used to call, I suppose, the right-hand side of a diamond midfield role, where he was not really a winger, but he was just right side of midfield, narrow, in the two and a half games where we played well. That's the best we've seen of him when he's had no Neves next to him. But he's not the player that we saw on in Portugal, like you said. He kind of throws everything up in the air now. Like, you look at all the video, the YouTube scouting that we've had on players that we've signed over the last 3 years. 70% have been shit. So it's like, well, any new signing now, can we even get excited about? Because our track record's gone from great to not very good at all.
If you put all your stock in like YouTube videos of players, you're constantly going to get scammed when you sign a player, because, like you say, it's not a true reflection of it, is it? It's not a true reflection of the player.
It's probably George Savile ones.
There probably are. And you know what?
Yeah.
Ever since he left us, I think every club he's played for, they've all loved him for whatever reason. But there you go.
I did think the fifth goal was like the second in the favourite stakes, mainly because like Lopetegui just made his like tombola subs at half time. Three had come on. You think they probably had a half time bollocking and they're going to come out and at least show some fights. And then the ball just goes to Collins. Collins just passes it straight to Welbeck and he goes in. This is within like 2 minutes. And the camera just cuts to Lopetegui and he's on the touchline just with this, head on the back of his hands, thinking, for fuck's sake, I've done all that at half time. And it's lasted 2 minutes. You can't be the sixth goal though for shitness.
Yeah, I think, look, it's not going for you when Danny Welbeck's putting weak-footed kind of finishes from the edge of the box. But the worst one was for me was his first goal. I think just in the ridiculous lack of application at any point in that move, like nothing to stop the cross, nothing to stop Welbeck getting a header on goal. Saar kind of just collapsing at the front post, like when it wasn't really a powerful header either. It was just a total calamity, not in a funny way at all. It was just really, really poor. But I can't help but feel if it's 4-0 at half time, and he said this himself, I've got Lopetegui's interview after the game up here for to kind of reference, but he said the first guilty is me. It's about the coach and it's a very bad day. He's got to hold his hands up on this one, hasn't he?
Yeah. You could, like I said, you could see from 5 minutes it was not going to work, just because there was no shape or anything at all, or any kind of idea. And I know like you said, it's Brighton and you're going to have to give them respect and whatever, which is fine. But we've played decent teams. I know Spurs are Spursy and whatever, and Chelsea and Liverpool both the shambles at the time. But still, they've still got players to punish you. We had no idea what we were doing yesterday from the first minute, and that's on him. Simple as that. What happened afterwards, after the confusion sets in and all the madness and not being able to pass, well, not even 5 yards, like 2 yards in some instances. Just, yeah, he dropped a bollock massively. If they tried, what it did look like to me, it looked like they'd had 2 days training on a different formation, a different idea, which completely bollocksed up.
This is what gets me, like, as what I said before, that there almost seems to be two Lopeteguis. The one when we play at home, who were really solid, efficient. We've all seen our home record since he took over. Many wins to 0 at home. That's got us into the position where we are. and then there's the version which appears out of nowhere when it's time for an away game, and he goes, "Oh, I know, I'll pull this idea and formation out my arse, and here we go." It's a bit baffling, to be honest. So we have these like Jekyll and Hyde versions of Lopetegui.
To be fair, I mean, I'm happy he's kind of seemed to have binned off the Matinho plan around kind of playing him as an advanced midfielder, or almost next to a striker. I think it was Forest the last time we did that. I mean, Forest is another example of us going into a game and trying to be conservative around it when really we could have gone in and attacked them and probably made a much better fist of it, like we did against Leicester. But this away form, something needs to kind of give. We've still got a few difficult fixtures to go away from Molineux. I mean, it's a question. Is Molineux becoming a bit of a fortress like now? Is it a formidable place? I don't know if you feel it when you're at the ground or not, but obviously the form reflects that. But
I was waiting for the F word to come out, the fortress word.
I don't know. Like, obviously, this is what people will say when they start seeing things like, 6 wins out of 8 at home with no goals conceded in all 6 or something like that. So, is that a legitimate claim?
Someone called it Lopetegui's Castle on an infographic on Twitter in the week, which is a new one on me. It doesn't feel like that. I don't know what it is. It doesn't feel like it's, we're at home, we're going to win. I don't know what that's just kind of, it's bored into us.
When you put it into the context that the 2 games we didn't win out of the 8 were Bournemouth and Leeds.
Yeah.
I guess that probably brings it back to a bit of a, okay, maybe it's not quite the place we think it is at the moment, but
it ain't just the wins, is it? It's the clean sheet record as well.
Yeah.
Which, for a team of retards, as people were calling them yesterday, who couldn't do anything at all defensively, and with the addition of one player in Super Craig, who even he couldn't prevent that yesterday, it's a minor miracle, really, that we've managed to be so defensively excellent at home when before Christmas we were a shambles, and whenever we leave WV1 we're a shambles as well. Bizarre, utterly bizarre.
Obviously, there's not much to write home about from yesterday's game. But if you had to pick out a slight note of positivity, Neto, for me, looked sharper than he has done. I mean, he had a couple of 45 minutes, I think, at home recently where he got dragged at half-time with no impact on the games whatsoever. I think Spurs was one of them. I can't remember the other one. But he did seem to be a little bit more in tune and well, he just looked quicker to me. I don't know if you thought the same, Adam.
Yeah, he was bright, he was lively, he's quite positive with his runs. I mean, I'd probably say, you'd have to put him down as like our best player, wouldn't you, really, from our starting 11. The only thing I'd say is that, I'll accept is that he was our best player and most lively, but it was that thing of having such a predominantly left-footed player play on the right meant that when the chance come along when like Costa wanted to cross in, he wasn't going to get it, was he? Because Neto stops and cuts back in to either take a shot, or I think there's that one when Núñez had his one opportunity that worked all right when he passed into Núñez. But that's probably one of the issues of playing that way is the fact that the strikers are going to have a lot of dead runs essentially, because someone like Costa will make a run and then Neto will instinctively cut in, and then his run is dead. Then he'll have gone offside, or defense will trap back. So there was that caveat that I noticed when I was watching Neto make his runs away. But that's irrelevant really compared to the grand scheme of the game. But,
I still think he did his best work going on the outside of his man rather than cutting in, didn't he? Just because he was able to outpace him. But that's the kind of player he is. I still don't think he's worked out how to cut in field and be impactful. But he needs to, because that's it's important for wingers to have more than kind of one kind of trick in the box, I guess. I mean, we don't really want to dwell on it too much, do we? But any other final thoughts still on the game at all? It's still a bit of a loss. 6-0. I mean, The last time was obviously that Southampton game, I think, but that would be our last time we scored. I remember us losing 5-0 to Fulham under Connor. Was it Terry Connor? Yeah.
I was there for that one.
Yeah. I mean, where does it rank this game then for you?
I mean, yesterday was the worst I've ever seen, without a shadow of a doubt.
Is that because though, like that kind of team was just down and out? They were done.
Yeah.
But this is worse because we aren't that level of shit.
Yeah. Well, both reasons. When you look at it in context of what the players were, I mean, you throw in the 5-1 against Blackburn in 2003, and the 5-0 and the 4-0 against Charlton, Chelsea that season, where we were woefully ill-equipped for anything in the Doritos days. And then you got the Fulham one, and we was already dead and buried again then, with a team that had completely fell out of its arse. Whereas yesterday, the performance was arguably worse than any of them games, because at least in them games we had a bit of heart. Whereas yesterday there was fuck all. There was absolutely nothing at all. And yeah, like Dean Marsden said in the comments there, you go from a decent run of form, which fine, you expect to lose at Brighton, whatever, but you don't expect to completely capitulate like that. And with the so-called quality of players we have, with the kind of the 8th, 9th best form in the league going into that game since Christmas, just utterly ridiculous how bad it was. Neto aside, which I prefer him on the left anyway. I always have done. It made no sense why Matthias was moved to the left when he's been awful on the left. When he's done okay on the right, we had at least had some balance there. I think Costa was massively isolated, but again, what do you expect? We've already gone over that. I thought Podence did all right when he came on. I don't think he did much wrong. But other than that,
he forced a save out of the keeper at one point, I think maybe.
Steele saved the shot with his legs, didn't he, from him?
I always wonder, because like it's 4-0. Are you throwing people on and almost throwing them under the bus a little bit? Like Dawson getting dragged at that point didn't make any sense to me to bring on Collins, because I thought, well, if you're going to go to a back three, you could have left Dawson in there. And are you just going out to not show up Collins, but just kind of give him a run out as like a token gesture?
Yeah,
I did wonder that, because I thought, well, what's the point of taking your experienced head off, in the defence, your leader, for a young, more rash player, as we've seen this season? Collins, just ask Jack Grealish on that one. So, like, why would in those circumstances, why was Dawson one of the 4 guys?
You got Mateus Nunes playing wing back outside him with Mitoma. Mitoma, the couple of times he absolutely sent him spinning, didn't he? And I was just like, I mean, Nunes he's quick. He's not the kind of guy you think, you know what, I really wouldn't mind running at him. But Mitoma made him look stupid. Like,
the old team looked stupid, didn't they?
Great player. Right?
What I will say about him though, that however shit he was, he didn't hide though, which is a minor miracle.
No, you're right. But it was like an all-timer, like one of the worst individual performances I can recall.
Yeah, it was like 2 out of 10 stuff, and that's from his shot in the first half, getting that.
But I don't know about you. When I saw him second half against Leicester, he looked knackered, and then he didn't show up against Palace. Really, he didn't really give us anything against Palace. And so I wonder if he's just a bit shot a little bit in terms of energy levels, because he plays pretty much 90 minutes every week wherever you decide to play him.
But there's also the other part of that conversation, that when he's got a certain someone next to him, he's terrible.
That is true.
And
Neves is like the Grim Reaper to Nunez's performances, isn't it? Like,
it's like his kryptonite. Like he sucks all his life force out of him. But there's a case that you could drop 9 of them next week, and none of them have had any hard done by it, because it was so piss poor from everyone involved that you could put anyone else in that lineup and it'd be justified.
Well, that's the one thing that I see nowadays when I look at team sheets. You just look at, we've actually got so many options on our bench nowadays, haven't we? When you look I mean, you've only got to cast your mind back. This very same season, opening day, who did Large put on the bench at Leeds away? It was like Wolves kindergarten, wasn't it? Essentially, it was just children. But now you look at the bench and you think, oh, we've actually got. I mean, people may not like the players that are on the. People may think some of them are shit or past it or whatever, but we actually have options in which whoever the manager is can change. May not be for the better, maybe for the worse, but it can. Actually, there's options there for a team to be changed. So we're talking about changes. It will be interesting to see what he does against Villa, because do we have wholesale changes, or is it go out there and put it right sort of approach?
I mean, I'm still wondering when Bubba Cartero is going to make an appearance on the bench, to be honest, because he's fit now. But it goes to show that we have got a bit of depth, actually, because he is missing. But we can kind of talk about that in the second half. We're going to take a quick break, guys, and get on to some of the matters at hand, and kind of give you a bit of a status on what we think about the manager in charge at the moment. I'll catch you in a minute. Welcome back, everybody. Just before we get on to the other subjects that we've got lined up to talk about, I just wanted to cover the fact that we are due to play our charity football match in aid of Mind, the mental health charity, Friday, 2nd of June at Molineux. We're playing against a team of content creators from various other Premier League and other teams from around the UK, called Upload United. All proceeds, like I say, go to the mental health charity Mind. There is still a silent auction running where you can get a place to play in that game. You just submit your bid, go onto whichever social media channel you follow us on, and you can find out all the details of how to submit your bid to play in that game. And the highest bid will get a place. There's one place on each team, so 2 places going to actually share the turf with the likes of me and Price. Not Stu. Stu's let us side down on that one. But you can come and have a crack at us if you fancy.
Scheduling issues.
Stu would have been better in goal yesterday than Jose Sal.
I'd have backed Stu to play out from the back, to be fair.
Stu wouldn't have given it to Nunes.
No, he wouldn't have. He'd have just launched it as far as he could.
Price actually played with me for admittedly in 5-a-side, but still.
Sunday morning Galacticos, it was a very high standard.
Stu's like a footballing unicorn to me. I couldn't place his position or what he's like as a player or anything.
It's like the one day when I decided to play left-footed and everyone's like, "You're not left-footed." I know. Just giving it a go. Didn't work.
Well, maybe it's a good job you're not playing for our team's sake. I mean, 6-0 defeats will do this to you, and there's been somewhat of an inquest, I think, after what was a highly embarrassing defeat.
There's been an inquest from you, no one else.
No. Come on. I've got plenty of backup in this conversation.
Some people have been quote unquote reactionary, haven't they?
Reactionary, yeah, potentially. I mean, look, I'm not going to hide the fact that I think I would have expected us to be a bit more of a consistent kind of functioning team at this stage than we are at the moment. I think partly because what I've seen, we have seen us at our best recently, what you might call our best, in terms of a couple of fixtures where we seem to have the blueprint of what a Una Lopetegui team might look like, with the 4-4-2, with the dynamic midfield, winning the ball high up the pitch, not necessarily flooding, chances and goals, but resolute at the back as well. It's the first time we've actually looked like a team that can play with the back four ever since Nuno left the club, which is commendable, to be honest. It's something that we haven't achieved previously. But for me, I'm still waiting to kind of see what Yulin has brought to the club that makes me think, we're in for a really good season next year. That's the thing that kind of is kind of nagging at the back of my mind. Now, a lot of people seem to have taken this as the idea that I want him ousted with immediate effect, and that there's a whole host of managers that I'd line up and are ready to take over. That's not the case. Look, I'll hold my hands up and say absolutely. I think Graham Potter's a great coach, but I don't know at this stage, Stu, Pricey, if you think he should have achieved a bit more. Not necessarily in terms of points and things like that. I just think there's a degree of consistency that we're lacking that I think a really high level elite coach would have brought to the club at this point. And he was sold to us as an elite coach. Let's not forget.
I think, well, you only have to have some kind of a modicum of knowledge about Spanish football to know what he's like. And which is why I said when we were talking about him with Zach in October that I didn't particularly want him, and I call him like a deluxe version of Nuno, which I think is still fair. But I think more than anything, if anyone wants a bit of a laugh, and especially if you listen to this on Monday morning, go and look at Gully's Twitter and just some of the replies. We could have brought back a feature from the Certain Other Wolves podcast for Abuse of the Week because it was epic levels of fun. But
to be fair, what I will say is the vast majority of it has been relatively well mannered and genuinely kind of honest in where it's coming from, in the sense that it's a debate and people have tried to understand my point of view. Where I will draw the line is I got called a sad middle-aged man by one person, and the two people on my screen are significantly closer to middle age than I am. Just to lay it out there.
To be fair,
though, we're sad.
Yeah, yeah. We did a podcast about multiplayer games on Thursday, which is out tomorrow, actually. But you didn't have that grey bit in your hair though last week, Ollie. So they have got a point. To be fair,
I've had grey hair since I was 18 years old, Stu. I can assure you that.
You're hitting it well. But yeah, on the actual point, I think just because we were so shit and such an absolute shambles of a club when he came in, I think he would have took a minor miracle for anyone to do any better with us from the state that we were in at the time. And I mean, you can look at Emery and what he's done, and he's made Tyrone Mings look like a footballer again, which is superb, to be fair to him. But they weren't bottom of the league; they were mid-table at the time, and they'd been coached by Steven Gerrard, so that was a shock in itself. We had been coached by someone who completely lost any kind of dignity, had a few months under some PE teachers, and half the team were still harping for their old boss. And if you take the 10 points that we achieved away, we'd still be in with a shout of staying up with the points that we've amassed since Christmas alone. So I think I didn't expect consistency because of the players that we've got are nowhere near as good as some people think they are. Naming no names because we all know. And if they were as good as people think they are, then they wouldn't be here, which is, I think, a fair enough point. But at the same time, like we've said on it, the away game situation is odd, and his other teams that didn't seem to do that from memory. And I, like you, Gully, I've watched quite a lot of Spanish football. I don't remember his teams going away from home playing a different formation when it seemed to be set with a fullback so in their role. That seemed to be the way they played. Maybe it's a case of he's kind of feeling out the Premier League in a way, and we won't do this next season because obviously against Man United and Arsenal to come, we ain't going to go at them, are we? We ain't going to go 4-4-2 against them. We kind of know that now. But you counter that with the games like we talked about, like the Bournemouth defeat and the one to Leeds where we're 3 down. It's just baffling stuff sometimes. But again, he had a shit team and he bought half a squad's worth in January that's been part of his matchday squad since that time. So I think it's way too early to judge him. And I think for me, if you look at it overall, I'd probably give him a B for in a ranking wise, because I didn't really expect anything. Just purely for the fact that the squad was in such a shambles as it was, and the club as a whole was a shambles. The players were unfit. We know that. Dr. Death was binned off. We had a whole new fitness team brought in, a mini pre-season, and the whole thing's like it's starting again a quarter of the way through the season. And to be where we are now, I think is pretty impressive. has he done everything right? No. But if you go to Christmas and we're still as inconsistent when he's had a proper pre-season, I think then you've got a point to mention it. But obviously you can mention what you want. But I think for me, it's kind of a free hit. This season's been a free hit for me. Different country, shit players, a mismatch of all kinds of styles and approaches and things like that. Him adapting as well as players adapting, and we know from before like how long it took Neto in a different country. So I think overall, if we'd lost 2-0 yesterday, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But for me, I'm relatively satisfied for now, and I think he's got to have his own windows. He's had one window. I think he's got to have the summer and then next January, and then you talk about it next summer at the earliest, because we were we played in a certain way with a certain set of players from a certain stable as well, which we've kind of deviated from for the first time in 5-6 years.
Which look, the club has to take credit for that because it's the right thing to do.
Like, so there's been so much change in which needed to happen in such a short space of time to be safe, effectively. I know Dan still doesn't think so, but still, to be safe for where we are, I think is a great achievement and fair play to him. But he's not immune from criticism because no one is.
Yeah, I'm similar lines. So I mean, a result as yesterday's is obviously going to promote or provoke some quite extreme reactions from people. But yeah, I mean, when he came in, we were dead and buried, weren't we? We were expecting relegation was just on the cards when he came in. So he was brought in to keep us up, and he's pretty much done that. So he's come in and done what his remit was to do in the short term. So in the short term, it was just a case of staying up. He needed players, he got the players, and it looks like we are pretty much there. It'll take, a balmy set of results and circumstances for us to get dragged back into it now. Teams who've barely won all season will have to win like 3 or 4 games on the spin. Exactly. Like in Everton and Liverpool, to catch us. So it's highly unlikely to happen there that we'll get dragged in. So he's come in and he's done what we needed to do. We need to stay up, goal number 1, and that looks like that's going to be done. Has he really implemented a radical new style of play? No, not that any of us can really see in the naked eye, but is that what we're looking for right now? It would be, like I say, it would be hard for him to do that in the middle of the season. I know he had the World Cup break, but some players were away. He didn't, when he came in, he then had to wait another month until the transfer window started to get his players in, and then he's got to start embedding the new players coming in the space of the transfer window and beyond. So I think he's done really well to do what he's done. And then, as we've said, or as Stu said, when he gets to the summer, that'll all be changed, and he'll have a new summer transfer window to bring in the players that he wants. Hopefully, anyway, hopefully we're expecting a bit of an upheaval anyway in the summer. Players going and hopefully coming in. So then we start to look a bit longer term. So next year we'll see where how the playing style changes, if it does, what results that yields. I do think there's a tendency to look to Villa and look at their manager because they've also got, Europa League winning manager, just like we have. But I mean, to coin the phrase, comparison is the thief of joy. Just because that Villa have got a very good coaching and it's took them to the heights they've gone to doesn't take away from what Lopetegui's done for us. Because when Lopetegui come in, his goal wasn't to get into the top 7 where Villa are. The goal was just to get us safe. Just so happens that Emery down at Villa has done that and then some. So let's not dwell too much on what Emery's doing at the moment. The fact is, that Lopetegui's come in and has got us safe pretty much, which is the job. And he said before, I think I saw it in the recent interview for Lopetegui, he was told he was crazy coming into Wolves, given where we were at the time. But it's a challenge he's took on and he's practically delivered. But that is just a short term. It is dependent now on what goes on in the future. And yeah, as I said before, we seem to have two versions of them. We have the home version and then the away version. And obviously, we don't like the away version so much because we don't tend to play well or win well on the away games. So that needs to be worked on. And he's not a perfect coach, as we said before. I'm always first in the group chat to joke about his tombola halftime subs when the starting lineup is inevitably wrong on away games.
And look, you can't argue with the fact that that's a problem, right? Yeah,
it is a concern. It's something to note in the concern column, and that is one to look at. But like I say, overall, he's come in to keep us up, and he's doing that or has done that. It's the things about the high level of subs to change the starting lineup. It is, and I've said this before in the group, group chat as well. It is a concern, but hopefully it's something which over time he irons out, and maybe it's something which he's doing because he's still finding out his right team or adapting his ideas to the Premier League. We don't know, but it is something that is a concern, and that we hope that it just gets rectified as time goes on, and certainly after another summer window.
I think a lot of that as well. You've got to think, we said the shocking fitness levels of them players to play to go from no pressing at all to some kind of pressing. It's going to take it out of them, even if they are a little bit fitter than they were.
Yeah, but that's why he's used I think he's used all of his subs in 90% of his games, right? Because he's needed to, right? Because of that demand that he's placed on the players, which is fine. I've not got an issue with that. I think for me, the amount of kind of rescue missions he's had to do is one thing that kind of concerns me for a start, right? Coming up with an example, right? The Spurs game, yes, we won that game 1-0, but up until the point Diego Costa got injured, I think they were running all over us, and we're just lucky that they're not actually that great going forward. We then had a chance to change things around and whatnot, but there's been kind of too many phases in games where I just think, it just makes me feel a bit uneasy and uncomfortable. Palace second half, whilst again we've probably benefited from the fact that they're not the most efficient attacking side. We're towards the end of the game, we're just booting the ball away. Like, it's just little things like that just bother me, because I think we're a better team than that, and we've shown we are better than that. But it's just certain times I just think he's not instilled necessarily a sense of confidence and calm sometimes in the way the players want to play, and trusting them a little bit more and just try and get the most out of them. He has clearly got more out of them than what Blige was doing at the start of the season, but I just still think by the end of the season I think he'd have managed 23 Premier League games, something like that. It's not like he's been here 10 minutes. It's not like he came here with 10 minutes, 10 games to go, and we did with 10 points adrift or anything like that. It was an eminently achievable task, and I do think we've benefited from the fact that there are a lot of really poor teams. I think 13 managers have changed in the Premier League this season. 14. Like that. 14 is it? Like, there's a lot of shit in the Premier League at this point. Nobody could have envisaged, West Ham, Leicester, these teams kind of sinking the way that they have. Yes, Everton, of course, terrible. Leeds, you expected them to kind of be down there. Forest, some of these other clubs. Southampton are on hiding to nothing with their transfer policy. And that's kind of propped us up a little bit, I think, as well, in terms of being able to pick up points in certain games and just, rely on other teams losing. That's become part of the kind of climb up the table as well. But for me, we'll kind of finish on this before Twitter Corner. Going into next season, how confident are you that we're going to be a top 10 side, say?
Top 10? 90%. I really am. I think if you boil that down, if you say 23 games he would have managed by the end of the season, if you extrapolate that, the stats from them 23 games, and we are in the top 10 form-wise in the league, which I'd still imagine us to be there and thereabouts with. I think the fact that he's got that kind of level of performance from this group of players, while at the same time not playing very well sometimes, is a good sign. And I think the overperforming your XG thing. Yesterday that we had our usual XG of like 0.8, and they had about 3.4.
I'm surprised we got that much, to be honest.
Well, it was the Matthias shot, I presume,
Yeah,
which was a decent one. But yeah, I think I'm pretty confident that if not top 10, I'd say between 8th and 12th. If you say 8th and 12th, I'd say pretty much nailed on for me.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't know how the summer window will go because, like I said earlier, there's going to be a big upheaval in the outgoings. I think probably the expected sale of Neves, but it just depends on who wants him. To be honest, because I say he's not at the elite level, Neves. So it just depends what he wants to play Champions League, but it just depends who at that level wants him. So
I'm sure Karabag would take him, wouldn't they? Talk about Champions League football and stuff.
Yeah, or young boys or whatever. He can go and join. I was going to say Bonatini, but he's not even in Switzerland anymore, is he? He's in Mexico. But yeah, I mean, I'm confident that we should be able to break into the top 10 with this squad plus additions next year, and have a proper philosophy embedded over the summer. I mean, Premier League is crazy these days. You said before, 14 managers gone this season. That's just because that teams panic, don't they? Teams just panic, and the only two down the bottom that spring to mind that haven't panicked is Forest and West Ham. They're the ones that have just stuck with their manager. Could be for the better, could be for the worse. It looks like Moyes had this chance where he could have gone, but he's turned it round.
I'll be surprised if he sees through the summer, though. I feel like he'll go at the end of the season.
Well, I've heard rumours that he might call it quits and retire in the summer, and what I've heard. But I mean, hey, it looks like he's keeping them safe, and they're in the Euro semi-final, so they've done well.
But this is what I mean. I think the level of coaching at the top of the Premier League, you're talking top 6, 7, is so far ahead of whatever's down the bottom that we need to catch up sooner rather than later, because otherwise, we will get kind of dragged down into that bottom half of the table and be kind of in this cycle consistently. And I just want to see something from Lopetegui that tells me, you know what, okay, we're further along than maybe I'm seeing right now, because you will need to be a really good coach to be a top 10 Premier League manager soon.
I will say on that though, you look at, I know he's going to say, man, really mentioned Emery more than he's been mentioned on Villa Watch this week, but they have talking about XG and stuff like that. Their expected points, they're like something like 15 over. Like the amount of jammy goals and deflections that they've gone in from with the usual Villa look is massive compared to everyone else in the league. And they're not going to get European football anyway. You can see already the amount of games of the
and you know what?
In hand on them.
We've said this before. We're going to beat them next weekend. I'm pretty confident that that's going to be the case. We should have beaten them at Villa Park, let's be fair. But I think a lot of the XG stuff is to do with the fact that they go ahead in the game and then they kind of sit back and just kind of allow the soaking pressure. But if we were going ahead in games on a regular basis, I wouldn't give a Scoobies about the way Lopetegui's setting up. But we're not, are we? So yet. We'll call it there. It was actually very measured and quite sensible. So I appreciate that, guys. Nothing like any of the Twitter discourse that we've had over the last 24 hours. But I'm always here for it, guys. So if anybody does want to tweet me with any conversation points or whatever, I'm happy to respond in kind. We'll finish up with the Twitter corner, and we'll start with our very own Matt. What's your go-to activity to do when Wolves have suffered a heavy defeat or lose a derby? After the Albion game, I stormed around the local park doing laps, head down, listening to Cradle of Filth. Was there anything you did yesterday that kind of took your mind off things?
I like to mention the Cradle of Filth there, because I mentioned it on last Thursday's cage fighting. It must have stuck in his head, a bit of goth metal. What do I do? I don't know. I'm trying to think what I did yesterday. Yeah, I just tell it as soon as it's full time, just tell it off, and then just some sort of fresh air and or outdoor, some sort of outdoor activity just to blow the cobwebs away. Or because the last thing I want to do, what I used to do, I think back in the day, was just put the PlayStation on or something. But that would normally entail with me playing FIFA and someone scoring the what's the proper term for it now? Sweaty goal.
Sweaty goal. Yeah.
Sweaty goal. Yeah, careful what you say. And then that just gets me angry again. So what's the point in doing that? Or have an angry wank.
Sorry, I had to share that one. The last time I really felt that kind of fuming was that 3-2 against a shit. And to be honest, I don't think I actually settled after that game. I was just angry for a very long time. At least a good 48 hours. So maybe I do need to come up with a coping mechanism.
I mean, I won so much money off that game though, so I was just
but just because you're a deviant, Stu. You're an absolute deviant.
Literally laughing all the way to the virtual bank that day because you didn't listen to me, did you? You all had the chance. You all had the chance to do it. It was so obvious it was going to happen.
I've got Nuno and Cody just sat on the sidelines, just burned into my brain, man. I mean, likelihood is we're never going to get a pop back at them again, are we? So who gives a shit? But, okay, next question. Rob Cartwright, what's worse, our loss yesterday or Spurs today? Which would you rather be on the end of? It is pretty epic that they pulled it back. Only for our very own Diogo to go and nab the winner. I did appreciate Diogo scoring that goal, but
I think with today, with yesterday, it's like a slow, painful death, right? It just happens over a long period of time. With Spurs today, it's like a sudden incident. It's just like it's an instant thing, isn't it? You've got the joy of coming back, and then you voluntarily give it away, because that's what happened, wasn't it? They voluntarily just gave it away after getting back. So I think as far as like emotions go, I think I'd have to say Spurs, because you've just pulled yourself back and then you just give it away. Whereas us, it's just like shit and just stayed there for 90 minutes.
Yeah. I think that's. I mean, I even said earlier down that I think with Leeds getting battered, absolutely battered by Bournemouth, that is way worse than our game yesterday, our result yesterday. I mean, that was the fact that so many teams have got dicked by huge scorelines. It's like ours is it's just another one. Like United at Anfield, worse than ours. Spurs falling apart in 21 minutes, worse than ours. Spurs today, worse than us. It's like, well, we'll be brushed under the carpet on Totally Football Show tomorrow. It'll be fine. No one will talk a bit. They'll be like, little old Brighton. The only thing that pissed me off was when they followed that rogue seagull flying around the ground. It was like, even the wildlife was rubbing it in. But none of the game, because it was over so quickly. I thought, oh well, whatever. And then I was laughing towards the end anyway. But that one seagull pissed me off, which is kind of says everything you need to know. Maybe I need help.
What would have been worse, an actual animal seagull or one of the fans in seagull attire taking a piss out of us?
You see them all at Wembley. That was like...
yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm on about. With someone dressed up as a seagull taking the piss, I think would have been a low moment in all of our lives.
Trying to steal your chips. I mean, thing is, our loss, I mean... The chances of us lose 6-0 next week are so inconceivably slim, but you can see Spurs shit in the bed again next week, can't you? Like, you can actually imagine it. It's like it's this cycle of torture that they're continually on. Oh, there's teasing.
I said this to Stu, don't I, when we were having a pint together in the Gifford last Tuesday, and I said, how are Spurs currently at the time of us talking? How could they possibly be in fifth when they just seem to lose or draw every single week? And they're still there.
It's baffling, honestly. That they could have just kind of coasted through the season and probably finished top 4 with Conte, and that'd have been all right. But the fact that they've managed to fuck all that up, it's just
Spursy.
It's great entertainment. Final question from Dean Marsden. Thanks for all your contributions throughout this as well, Dean. With the upcoming charity game, what professional player would you use to sum up your own footballing style? Not ability, style, Stu.
Fabian Barthez.
Wow. Okay. Absolute lunatic. Lunatic with the bald bonds.
Cody's going to kiss his bald head.
Yeah, I was going to say, who's your Laurent Blanc?
Well, you know what? See, you say this, but whenever Mez is on the other to win me, he does that to me because because I sit towards the front, quick access off to the pub, and he was doing that for a time. He was coming and kissing my head, which was strange, but there we are.
The lesser spotted Chris Merricks.
Yeah.
Send out
He actually texted me before the game yesterday saying, "Are you not here?"
I was missing you. He
Where
needed
were
a head,
you, Steve?
needed a
Where
head
were
to
you?
kiss.
I had a whole segment lined up about your day out, and then you let me down.
Yeah. I was sitting at home drinking the Banks is mild. It's actually got mild written on it now, not original, which is better.
As we clearly saw from the last Fancast charity game, my style of football is clearly based on Eggert Jonsson. Unfit and shit. And that'll be the same again at the next Fancast game.
You've got time to prepare for this one now.
Yeah, I do need a few warm games, to be fair. I might lean on people who play every Wednesday night or something just to get a few minutes in. Either that or I'm going to go full Ledley King again. Just no training, just turn up and play the game. And then you'll just hear my knees crunching as I try and run past you.
There it is, guys. If anyone needs a player, half an hour before kickoff for one of their weekly five-a-sides, reach out. I'd go. I've always loved Kevin Foley as a player. A bit of a kindred spirit of mine, I'll be honest, because he's a fullback and people underrate fullbacks, and I always love watching him play. But again, because people don't want to do this, I'm gonna have to play centre half in this charity game. Again, take one for the team. But
you're gonna let it bounce this year.
Do you know what? I've thought about this. Ever since I was diagnosed with my eye condition, yeah, and I've got my contact lenses back in, my aerial ability has increased tenfold. This will not be happening this time around. I wasn't wearing my contact lenses at the time, so I'm going to put it down to that. But yeah,
it's been keeping him awake since the first game. Listeners and viewers.
Honestly, the first chance I had to get back on the Molyneux turf and redeem myself, I needed to take it because the only highlight from that game that I feature in is that. And it's totally embarrassing. Despite the fact a bloke who scored a hat trick in that game said I was the best player on the pitch, but nobody's going to know that or remember that, are they? So there you go. You're just gonna have to take my word for it. So there you go. But yeah, that's all we have for this evening, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. As best as we could do with a 6-0 defeat to work with. And some light-hearted debate and some honesty and a little bit of cool-headedness from all of us. I'd like to think, which is great. We'll be back. I'll be back myself with a tactical analysis of what went to shit against Brighton this week. And we'll have another preview show ready for our Midlands derby on Saturday, which 100% we're going to be taking 3 points from, which I'm sure Dan will be leading later in the week. But for now, it's goodbye from Stu.
Goodbye, everyone. 3 points ahoy.
Goodbye from Adam.
Shit on the Villa. Bye-bye.
And goodbye from me. See you soon, guys.